The 2019-2020 NBA season wrapped up just over 2 weeks ago, and it's that time of year where there's not much for NBA fans to talk about. So today, I thought I'd make a list ranking who I think will be the top 10 point guards heading into next season. Keep in mind, this isn't who I think were the best point guards last season. It's who I think will have the better 2020-2021 NBA season. These lists are usually pretty controversial because everyone has their own opinions, and that's okay. If there's anything that you'd change about my list, go ahead and share it down in the comments below. I don't expect you to 100% agree with my list, but I do ask that you respect my opinion and I'll respect yours. While you're down there, go ahead and leave a like if you enjoy my content and subscribe. Or don't if you don't feel like it. I can't make you do anything. I'm just a guy making YouTube videos. But what I will say is that we're dropping bangers on this channel. So if you don't want to miss a video, hit that subscribe button and the bell to join Noti Gang and receive notifications when I drop my next upload. And without further ado, let's get into this list. Roll it. Okay, so I'd like to preface this list by naming a few honorable mentions. The first two being the Raptors backcourt of Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet. This past season, these two shared the backcourt together, taking turns bringing the ball up the court. While the Raptors' main point guard is Kyle Lowry, Fred VanVleet is also an above-average starting point guard. However, going into this next season, I really just don't see either of these two being above anyone in my top 10. My other three honorable mentions are Ja Morant, De'Aaron Fox, and D'Angelo Russell. All three of these players are exceptional young players with tremendous potential who are just outside of my top 10. So I could definitely see them becoming top 10 players at their position as soon as the 2021-2022 season. However, I just don't see them jumping into the top 10 this upcoming season. Okay, so with that out of the way, hey guys, it's your boy Crunch Time. Obviously, you're watching my channel, why wouldn't it be? But I'm just editing this video and I'm going back and I just realized I forgot Kemba Walker and D'Angelo Russell, and I thought they deserved a mention. So I'm adding them in here, and I didn't want you guys to get too mad that I didn't mention them. So yeah, I'm mentioning them here. Great players. The point guard position is just really stacked, so they didn't make the list. Yeah. At number 10, I have Jamal Murray of the Denver Nuggets. Jamal Murray had a solid season last year, putting up averages of 19 points on decent efficiency, along with 5 assists, a steal, and 2 turnovers per game. And while yes, these are incredibly decent numbers, especially given that he was considered a second option for most of the year, they weren't really enough for me to put him into my top 10. However, in the bubble playoffs, Jamal Murray put together a string of awe-inspiring games and really showed us the type of player that he could be in this league. Averaging 27 points, 7 steals, and 4 rebounds while shooting basically 50, 45, 90 from the field, Murray established himself as the primary scoring option for his team and led them all the way to the Western Conference Finals while knocking out the team that most people expected to win it all in the Los Angeles Clippers and coming back from 2 consecutive 3-1 deficits. The only reason Jamal Murray isn't ranked any higher is because it's still up in the air on whether his amazing playoff performance was a fluke or whether he's the real deal. If Murray can keep up this level of play next season, then he could honestly make a case to be a top 5 point guard in the league. However, as it stands, 10 is the highest I'm willing to put him. And at number 9, I have Russell Westbrook of the Houston Rockets. For me, Westbrook was a hard player to rank, but after thinking about it, I think that number 9 is a pretty good spot for him. At the start of last season, there were some doubts about how well he could play alongside James Harden, since they were two incredibly ball-dominant guards, and people weren't sure if Russ would be willing to take a backseat to Harden. However, Westbrook surprised a lot of people at the beginning of the season as he played exceptionally well beside James Harden, and the Rockets were looking like legitimate title contenders. But Russ took an even bigger step forward when the Rockets fully committed to small ball and traded away their only center in Clint Capella and got back Robert Covington, a 6'7" small forward who could defend and space the floor for Westbrook. Again, there were a lot of questions about how well this ultra small ball formula would work, but these doubts were quickly silenced when the Rockets started to win games and Westbrook really came into his own, and it could be argued that he was the best player on that team after the trade, even over James Harden. He finished the season averaging 27 points, 7 assists, 8 rebounds, and a steal and a half per game. And even though he also averaged a disgusting 4.5 turnovers per game and shot an even more disgusting 26% from 3, I really thought of him as a top 3-point guard in the NBA going into the playoffs. But then the playoffs came around. And even though, yes, he was coming off a quad injury, to be quite frank, Russell Westbrook was horrendous. He was garbage. In the Rockets' first series against the Thunder, he only played 3 out of the 7 games and averaged about 27 points, 4 assists, and 6 rebounds while shooting 42% from the field and 17% from 3. 17%.
Defense laying off of Westbrook, daring him to shoot the shot. Westbrook will shoot an air ball for Westbrook, saved by Harden.
But the Rockets won, so I cut him some slack. I gave him the benefit of the doubt since he was coming off a quad injury. But then in the next series against the Lakers, he put up averages of 20 points, 5 assists, 7 rebounds on 42% field goal percentage and 26% three-point percentage. 26% from 3.
On the 24. Little shake and bake, swatted out of bounds by James.
And after a while, the Lakers began giving him the Ben Simmons treatment and just let him shoot. And it was hard to watch. It was really hard to watch. And after that, I'm sorry, but I just can't bring myself to put Russ any higher than number 9. Next up on my list at number 8, I have Trae Young of the Atlanta Hawks. In his sophomore season, Trae is already one of the better players in the league, as he's already garnered comparisons to Stephen Curry because he's an undersized point guard with limitless range. While I don't think Trae will ever become quite as good as Steph, or ever be the same shooter because, who is? That's not to say that I don't see the similarities in their games, or think that Trae doesn't have immense potential. He was undisputably the best player and leader of his team last season. He put up close to 30 points per game on 43% shooting from the field and 36% from behind the arc, accompanied with 9.3 assists and 4 rebounds per game. He has a high turnover rate, giving up the ball almost 5 times per game, but this is expected as he's been given the keys to Atlanta's offense at such a young age, and I expect to see his turnovers decrease moving forward as he gains NBA experience. Putting up those kinds of numbers, you'd expect him to be garnering a lot more attention than he is, as his stellar season has somewhat flown under the radar due to the fact that the Atlanta Hawks were one of the worst teams in the league. I don't fault Trae too much for this, as he didn't have too much help around him, and the Atlanta Hawks are still a relatively young team, so the winning will come with time. Personally, my only qualm with Young is his putrid defense that I think puts a sort of cap on his potential, because standing at 6'1", I just don't know if Trae will ever become even a decent defender, and that's why he's not a lot higher on my list. Next up, at number 7, I have a player who I think surprised a lot of us this year in Chris Paul. First, let me say that Chris Paul last season was easily a top 5 point guard in the league. Going into last offseason, Chris Paul was viewed as one of the most overpaid players in the league, as he received more than $38.5 million last year alone, and over the next couple of seasons will be paid upwards of $85 million should he choose to accept his player option, which I'm 99.99999% sure he will. So, when the Rockets traded him to OKC, everyone thought his career would die there and slowly fizzle out until he eventually retired. However, Chris Paul would go out and prove everyone wrong, as he led a young Thunder team to the playoffs while averaging 18 points, 7 assists, 5 rebounds, and 1.6 steals per game. He was also doing it efficiently, shooting 49% from the field, 36.5% from 3, and recording only 2 turnovers per game. While yes, the Thunder were bounced out of the first round, they still put up a valiant effort, losing by only 2 points in Game 7, while Chris Paul averaged an efficient 21 points, 5 assists, and 7 rebounds. So yeah, for me, he was definitely a top 5 point guard last year. However, going to the 2020-21 season, I've placed him here because a couple other players will be returning from injury who I think will be better than him, and I expect that Chris Paul's production will drop off a bit, given that he is 35 years old. Coming in just outside my top 5 is Ben Simmons of the Philadelphia 76ers. Simmons had a solid season, putting up 16.4 points per game, 8 assists, and 8 rebounds. He also played exceptional defense, averaging 2 steals and 0.6 blocks per game, and was named to the All-Defensive First Team. He facilitated the 76ers offense exceptionally well, and I think his impact was incredibly apparent by the Simmons-less Sixers. Wow, try and say that one 3 times fast. Simmons-less Sixers, Simmons-less Sixers, Simmons-less Sixers, Simmons-less Sixers, Simmons-less Sixers. Wow, that's actually kind of easy. Never mind. Carry on. Performance in the playoffs as they were swept by the Celtics. Whether you want to attribute their loss to poor coaching or a lack of spacing, it is undeniable that the Sixers could have used Ben Simmons' services in that series. However, he hasn't cracked the top 5 for me just yet because of his lack of a jump shot. This is the part of Ben Simmons' game that is just so perplexing and frustrating to me, because from the bubble we all know that he has the ability to hit them, but for some reason or another he still refuses to take them. This hurts his team a lot because it allows defenses to sag off of him and clog the paint to stop Joel Embiid. So until this boy starts hitting from deep, or at least making 1 or 2 a game, I just can't put him any higher on my list. Just cracking the top 5 is Kyrie Irving of the Brooklyn Nets. Kyrie has been one of the more confusing players to rank over these past couple of years because he's one of the most skilled players in the entire NBA, but he struggles to stay healthy and he's perceived as a locker room cancer. However, I think that Kyrie might just not have been a first option kind of player, and may just be best suited as a second option, like he was in Cleveland next to LeBron. So going into next season, playing next to one of the greatest scorers of all time in Kevin Durant, I think that Kyrie will elevate his game once again to a level that will resemble his Cleveland days. Even saying this, last season in the 20 games he played in the regular season, Irving averaged an efficient 27 points, 6 assists, and 5 rebounds while helping get his team into the playoffs, so he still played like a top 5 point guard. He just didn't have a large enough sample size to warrant me putting him any higher on this list. At number 4, I have Damian Lillard of the Portland Trail Blazers. Last season, Dame had the best statistical season of his career, putting up 30 points, 8 assists, and 4 rebounds per game. He dragged an injury-riddled Blazers team to the playoffs by going off at the end of the season with a pair of 50-point games, and he also shot over 40% from 3 for the first time in his career. He had one of the most visually impressive seasons we've seen in a while, as he was dropping in 40-foot bombs all season long. He didn't have the best playoff performance ever, but it's excusable as he was hampered by injuries and also played against the eventual champions in the Los Angeles Lakers in the first round. I think this is the highest Dame can reasonably be put, given the players that are ahead of him, but he's still one of the best players the NBA has to offer. So next up on the list, coming in at number 3 is Luka Doncic of the Dallas Mavericks. I debated whether to classify Luka as a shooting guard, a small forward, or a point guard, but he's the player that brings the ball up the court most of the time, he's the primary ball handler, and he facilitates his team's offense, so I think point guard makes the most sense here. Luka is, in my opinion, the best young player in the league, young being under 25. He had a stellar rookie season and followed that up with an even better sophomore season that was such a vast improvement over his first one that he was a most improved player candidate. He almost averaged a triple-double with 29 points, 9 assists, and 9 rebounds, and also shot the ball pretty efficiently. Luka has an insanely high IQ for someone his age, and he's such a well-rounded offensive player who knows when to pass and when to look for his own shot and manipulates defenses masterfully. In just his second year in the league, he finished 4th in MVP voting, and even in the playoffs without his second best player in Kristaps Porzingis, Luka pushed the heavily favored Clippers to 6 games behind his stellar play. So going into next season, I only expect him to improve from here. At number 2, I have Stephen Curry of the Golden State Warriors. While most of last season Steph was out with a left hand injury, I don't think that it'll hinder his play very much at all. Over the past half a decade, Steph has been the undisputed best point guard in the league, and I think that this break from the action, especially after so many consecutive deep playoff runs, might actually help his play in the long run, as he is getting up there in age. I'm super excited to see Curry and the Warriors back in action again next year because although they've been the villains of the league for the past couple of years, they're still such a fun team to watch. And rounding off the list, the best point guard in the NBA next season will be, drumroll please, LeBron James. It's LeBron James. Do I even have to explain? Last year was the first time in his career he was officially classified as a point guard. Arguably the greatest player of all time. He came second in MVP voting, led his team to the best record in the West, led the Lakers to a championship, won Finals MVP, and while he might slow down ever so slightly, I don't think it'll be enough for Curry to overtake him. So, yeah, it's LeBron James. Alright, so that's going to be it for the list. A quick recap: I had Jamal Murray at number 10, Russell Westbrook at number 9, Trae Young at number 8, Chris Paul at number 7, Ben Simmons at number 6, Kyrie Irving at number 5, Damian Lillard at number 4, Luka Doncic at number 3, Stephen Curry at number 2, and LeBron James at number 1. Remember, this is who I think will have the best seasons next year, not who just had the better season. I think I did a pretty good job, but if y'all think there's something I should change, go ahead and leave it in the comments down below and explain why. Remember, keep it civil. We're just talking hoops, man. If we disagree, it ain't that deep. Go ahead and leave a like down below if you liked this video, and if you want me to do a part 2 where I rank the top 10 shooting guards in the league going into next season. Consider subbing, or don't, you do you. Other than that, that's it for the video. It's been your boy Crunch Time, and I'll see you next time. Peace.